to make any noise that would wake the other servants or the guests who were already up. They walked softly to the forbidden room. As they got closer, the air felt cooler, and the hallway seemed to stretch out longer than usual. The door of the room looked big and old, and it was cold when Simi touched it. Abu stood watch while Simi, taking a deep breath, slowly turned the handle. The lock clicked open surprisingly easily, as if it had been waiting for them all this time. Simi pushed the door open with her foot and stepped inside, her heart racing. The moment Simi crossed the threshold, the light from the hallway seemed to disappear, swallowed by an impenetrable darkness. She blinked, trying to adjust her eyes, but it was no use. "Abu, it's all dark. I can't see anything," she called out, her voice tinged with panic. Outside, Abu strained to hear his sister's voice. As he focused on the sounds from the room, his own world began to dim, the sounds muffling as if he was diving deep underwater. Suddenly, he realized he couldn't hear anything at all. Not Simi, not the distant early birds, nothing. Fearing for his sister, Abu stepped into the room, hoping to find her by feeling his way. As he crossed the same threshold, his sight remained, but the silence engulfed him. His ability to speak or hear was gone. He could see the room, a plain space with nothing but an old chest in the center, but he couldn't hear his own footsteps or the worried calls of his sister. Simi, blind in her dark world, could hear her brother moving but couldn't see him. "Abu, can you see me?" she shouted, her voice echoing strangely in the darkness that surrounded her. Abu, unable to hear her cries, moved closer, his hands outstretched trying to communicate. He saw Simi's outline, her hands reaching out in the dark, but his voice, when he tried to speak, made no sound. Frustrated and scared, he reached out and finally touched her arm. They stood there, one enveloped in silence, the other in darkness, both trapped in their separate experiences of the room's mysterious curse. Panic set in as they realized they could neither fully communicate nor escape the effects of the room. Abu led Simi by the hand, guiding her back to the door, hoping that leaving the room would end their ordeal. But as they stepped back across the threshold, the door swung shut with an ominous thud, trapping them inside. Simi's blindness and Abu's deafness continued, their senses cut off, leaving them isolated in their own versions of darkness. The forbidden room had ensnared them, its secret far more sinister and powerful than they had ever imagined. Simi, who still had her voice, shouted loudly, and Abu, who can still see, hit the door over and over again, hoping someone was nearby. But neither the sound from Simi's voice nor Abu's push came out of the room. It was an entirely different world in there. Back outside, as the day of the ceremony dawned, the village was buzzing with activity and excitement. Bukumi, busy with the final preparations, hadn't noticed the absence of Simi and Abu at first, but as hours passed and the twins were nowhere to be seen, her concern grew. They were always punctual, always where she needed them, their absence completely out of character. "Bukumi, we haven't seen Simi or Abu this morning," one of the servants whispered to her, worry creasing his brow. Bukumi's heart sank. They had never missed a day of work, let alone on such an important day. She quickly organized a search. "Check everywhere," she instructed, her voice tense with urgency. "Look in the gardens, the storerooms, every room in the house. Find them." The servants scattered, calling out the twins' names, their voices echoing through the corridors and across the grounds. But there was no reply, no sign of Simi or Abu. The other servants checked the usual places, the kitchen, the garden, the market path. but found nothing. As the sun climbed higher, the unease turned to panic. Bukumi felt a dread settling in her chest. Where could they be? She muttered to herself, trying to remember the last time she saw them. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more frightening than the last. By the time the guests began to arrive for the ceremony, the whole household was in disarray. However, Bukumi told her servants not to tell anyone about the missing twins,